Hello everybody, this is Yasmin from Yarkspiri and today I'm going to be covering the color palette on the side menu here, as well as the color swatches on the bottom here, because those are both related to each other. So I'm going to cover both of them at the same time. So in the color swatches, I currently have mine set to CMYK slider, you guys know, and it's set to CMYK spectrum, which is typically what you want to use for printing purposes. If you were exclusively making product for viewing on a TV screen or on your monitor, then you would change it to RGB spectrum and then the RGB sliders instead. So that is important because there is a difference between the two. There is a huge difference in the range of colors that are available in both those colors, so just keep that in mind as well. Okay, so mine are currently set to CMYK for printing purposes. In the bottom here, as you'll notice, I have a little eyedrop tool that pops up when I'm on top of it. And essentially what it does is, what the eyedropper does, is it allows me to sample directly the color that I want via just sliding this, and it will automatically slide all these sliders to the correct settings. I also have the option too in the far right hand corner here to sample a pure white and a pure black, which is default. Now if at any moment you want to reset your two swatches to black and white, just hit the D button on your keyboard and it will automatically do that for you, and you won't have to worry about anything. Now CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and the K is actually for the black. These are the CMYK is the three colors that are used in the printing process. So printers typically get cartridges with these three individual colors along with the black separately. And what this allows them to do is it allows them to combine those three colors along with the black color to produce all the colors that you see during the printing process. So that's the reason why mine is set to this, because I am set to CMYK mode. I'm actually going to change my mode to RGB, and I'm actually going to change both of these settings to RGB sliders and RGB spectrum instead. Okay, and as you'll notice too, this changes everything that I have within here. Now once again, this is something you would use specifically if you're producing content that is only going to be viewed on a monitor. Once again, I have my little eyedrop tool. I also have my white and black as the default, but I have RGB instead. R stands for the red, G for the green, and B for the blue. Now there is a difference in the mixing process when it comes to RGB, which is a light. Now there is a difference in how colors are mixed if you're comparing it to RGB versus CMYK. CMYK is similar to how an artist would combine colors to produce new colors. When you're looking at RGB, you're combining light together to produce new colors. These are two completely different methods of mixing to produce colors. Keep this in mind, because if you ever look up the physics on light and how the colors combine, and you're a painter, you're probably going to be severely confused. And the reason for this is that you essentially have to throw out all the knowledge you have out the window if you're trying to understand how to mix colored light versus actual physical mediums that you see in the real world, or pigments. So just keep that in mind. I'm not going to go through it, because if I do go through it, I know a lot of you are going to be very confused. So for simplicity's sake, just remember that RGB refers strictly to how light mixes together to produce different colors. So all the colors within your TV screen and your monitor, what happens is there's these tiny little pixels in there that combine together to form the colors that you see. So depending on how numerous those colors are, it will change the color of your screen. So that's essentially how it works, and the reason why, if you're producing content specifically for TV screens and for monitor viewing only, you do want to have your color set to this because you're going to get more accurate results if you do so. So I'm actually going to go back now that I've covered that. I'm going to go back to before I change this to RGB. I'm also going to change these settings back to CMYK because I do a lot of printing, so I don't want those changes saved. Okay. So with the CMYK, I can change, if I scroll this slider here, essentially what it's doing is, I'm just going to lighten this so you can actually see this a bit. With the CMYK, if I scroll this slider, you'll notice that the amount of cyan that is inside this color swatch is increased. Whereas if I change to magenta, once again, it changes how much of the magenta is being shown. And with the yellow, it's the same thing. Okay, and then K, once again, it controls how much of dark color you have and the darkness of the color. So if I scroll that back and forth, it will change that significantly as well. Now if I go in the top right hand corner here, I covered that quickly, you could change what type of sliders you want to see. So I had it originally set before I changed back to RGB sliders, and that's generally what you want to use in conjunction with the RGB spectrum if you're working only in RGB. There is some additional ones, however. You can also change it to the HSL sliders, and what it is this changes the hue on the top, so the type of color that I have, so whether it's in the blues, purples, or yellows. I can also change the saturations of the color. So if I scroll it to the left, it'll become more gray and dulled out, versus the right, which it becomes more vivid. These warning signs that you see pop up are extremely useful, especially for producing content that's going to be viewed on a monitor and TV. There is certain colors that are considered illegal colors because they will essentially burn out the TV. Now, obviously, it's something you want to avoid, so just modify that color a bit to avoid that. B, it changes how much of the darkness is actually being viewed. So it changes how much of the black is actually inside the color swatch. Now there's also something called lab sliders. Okay, what the lab colors are, these are essentially more technical in nature. You're actually modifying the colors according to their location on a surface. It's really hard to explain. You probably won't use this at all. So I don't recommend you use this unless you actually do the research related to this type of color. The basic thing though is these two tend to, the A and B settings for the lab colors, essentially they change according to how you scroll them in relation to each other. So what you're doing is you're essentially moving it on a flat plane of color and you're scrolling it within that plane. And so as you scroll that within that plane, it's changing the opposing A or B color. So because of that, it makes it very difficult to anticipate the type of color changes that will occur. So I don't recommend using this. I do recommend using RGB or CMYK. Now you do have the L, which seems to be a standard setting, and what it does is it changes the darkness of both of those. But these two, they tend to change very dynamically in relation to each other, so just be careful of that. Okay, and then you also have your web color sliders. So this is an RGB, obviously, because RGB is how you would actually set up your colors. But the interesting thing is it actually divides up the information that you would use for the web colors. So if I scroll this, you'll notice that the top, which is your red colors essentially, it's changing that value up here, and this is giving you the code that you need in order to put it in an HTML format or JavaScript. So this gives you the actual code that you need. There is a much easier way to sample this code though, rather than moving this interactively. and doing it in this bar here. So I'm just going to show you that. I'm just going to set this back to CMYK sliders because I do need that. So in the bottom left hand corner, if I double click on this, it gives me essentially a larger version of my color palette. It gives me a lot more information, however. If you look on the CMYK, because I am set to CMYK, it gives me the percentage of the colors that are mixed together to produce this specific color. So as you can see, there's a tiny bit of cyan actually mixed into this to produce this color, but the majority, as expected, is the magenta. It also tells me the lab colors. It also tells me the HBS colors, and most importantly the RGB, and it also gives me the HTML code that I need to add this color on a website. So on the bottom here, all I have to do is copy and paste that into my code, and automatically my text in HTML, as long as it's put in the correct area, will now appear with this type of colored font. That's a very useful tool, and because of this one window, I recommend you do this in this window because it is a lot easier to find out that code rather than having to work with the sliders. Okay, so let's say I like this color and it's a color I use very often. I can easily add this to my swatches that I'm currently using by just clicking on this. I also have the option of renaming this. Now I don't want this color, so I'm not going to save it. Click appear in here once I'm done. I also have the option of clicking on the color libraries. And what it shows me is, it shows me this here. Essentially, it's the LAB colors. Now, if you go up here and you scroll down, you'll notice that it tells me the Pantone colors and all that information. Essentially, these are solid colors that I'm viewing. It's not as interactive, but it shows you the gradients of the different colors. So it does have its uses. I do prefer to be in this mode here, which is the color picker mode, just because I am a painter. It's easier for me to understand versus the Pantone. So I'm not going to use the Pantone, I'm just going to keep it to this. Okay, so that's it for the two color palettes. I hope this was informative for you. There is a lot more information I have to go over. These buttons do require quite a bit of information, so I'm going to have to do those in separate videos for some pretty obvious reasons. They're just too much information to cover in one sitting. So thank you guys for watching this video, and I hope to see you guys soon. So thank you and take care.